Welcome back. Welcome in. This is Country Roads Confidential at earsports.com, a Paramount podcast. I am Mike Casaz with Chris Anderson. Chris, we are celebrating the spring game at West Virginia University. And hello, dog. Let's just take a second here to get past whatever you might say about the quality of the game, the purpose of the game, the presence of the game on a spring schedule, because that is always going to be a topic this time of year, every year, until they decide to mandate or completely do away with spring games. Um, I honestly can't think of a better outcome for them than what they produced on April 27, 2024. Big crowd. They kind of framed it around a future platform that'll work when it comes to pregame entertainment, in-game competitions and excitement, incorporating fans. There was a half an hour on the field afterwards, going on and on and on here. And by the way, the third largest crowd in spring game history, at least on record. Because 6 years ago, we were talking about, do they even want to play this anymore? And a lot has changed in that time. A lot's changed in a year or two. But I guess I just want to give a thumbs up or maybe two claps to West Virginia for orchestrating this and also pulling it off.
Yeah, that's what one of the first things I was going to ask you, because I think this was hey, what are we watching for in the spring game? When you and I did that video on Friday, and I asked, what's the attendance going to be like? That's the first thing I want to look at. Are people going to show up? The answer is apparently yes. I'm looking at the official number says 18,540. You can tell me if that's accurate or not. Sounds like it might have been. Um, Getting people there is key because, like you said, just a couple years ago, we were having discussions. Is it even worth having the spring game? How many people are going to show up? It's only a few thousand people. And just last year, there wasn't that much of a crowd. And people were, I think it's safe to say, not just with the spring game, but kind of apathetic towards the program,
Mhm.
towards Neil Brown, I think is fair to say. But now there's excitement and there's hope and there's people. So a lot has changed in a year, and for the most part, or all parts, for the better.
18,540. The record, and believe this for as much as you want, but the 2011 season with an even 22,000. That was a big crowd, I remember. And you can imagine they were pretty pumped about that team too. Um, Year one of Holgerson. Let's do something positive for the program because they certainly had some tumult that offseason and they were going to be good. They knew that. And then prior to that, Neil Brown's first season, Chris, 18,865. So not far from being the number two. And listen, how legitimate is an even 22,000 in a year they really wanted to have a big number? I don't know. I'm not going to say they fudged that number, but maybe closer to 18,000 than 22,000. So listen, all things considered, this is a pretty good thing that they pulled off. And let's just get into this for a second here. And I don't want to be negative because again, they overcame the darts that we might be throwing right here too. But giving your fans 24 hours notice that Pat White and Pat McAfee will be the honorary coaches of the game. Those are both big deals. And then also you're going to have a reveal for a new set of uniforms, which turned out very well, but they also left a fruit hanging low on the tree too, so they can keep people tuned to their social media. And listen, I'll be honest, I was like, boy, they could have done a better job promoting that. I don't know how difficult it was to pull it together. Pat McAfee is doing the draft on Thursday and Friday in Detroit. Pat White is out west with the San Diego Chargers and his kids. It might have been a difficult thing to pull together. I'm honestly not sure what the number would have been had they announced this April 1st, May 15th. It's still a pretty healthy number, too. So they did a good job parrying a lot of the insults or jokes we could have made about him. And all things considered, this grows into something that is an annual exclamation point, and it starts here. That's a great thing for them. Let's just begin with that. What did you make of McAfee and White being back? Huey Mack being the pregame, the uniform reveals, although perhaps not the entirety of what they have up their sleeve. There's a lot to pick here. What did you think about everything they put on the table for us?
It's smart to kind of make it a whole thing, like make it one big event. And I don't want to take anything away. It's not unique. That's something you and I have discussed on this podcast for years now, but it was pretty cool because there's been a lot of talk amongst WV fans like, hey, bring Pat White back for this. Hey, why is Pat McAfee not coming back for that? Especially, hey, he's one of the most famous people in sports right now, Pat McAfee, and he's a WVU alumnus. Why is he not here? Wait, hey, Pat White, he's one of the greatest college players ever. Why are we not seeing more of him? And then to bring them back for the spring game, like you said, it was a little. Why is this a Friday afternoon news dump right before the spring game of, hey, here comes Pat White, here comes Pat McAfee. Also, we're unveiling uniforms. Um, it, yeah, thoughts on that? Lots of them, but like you said, Pat McAfee was just doing NFL draft stuff for ESPN the night before, and Pat White, his job, had a family, busy, could have been kind of up in the air to the last minute. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. But pulling it all together, getting people excited, I think that's the smart way to go with this.
Yeah, I mean, just kudos for getting Pat McAfee back and for bringing Pat White into the program. Those guys have been kind of distant for different reasons, very different reasons. To get them back is great. And
Hey,
again, do they
Mike.
do this every year? They have honorary captains. I don't know, but you get Pat White there, who some of these players, some of them know a little bit about. Again, this might predate them, which makes me feel old, but there are people who watch the highlights before the game on Saturday and maybe Friday when they first found out about this, and they were just like, "Holy cow, this guy?" They heard about him, they hadn't seen him, they knew he played there, they weren't really aware of it too. And then I mean, McAfee draws a billion eyeballs. He's out partying at Mutts the night before the game. And by the way, a player commits to him on social media. um, again, all things considered, like there's certain things you want to do. They got all that and a little bit more too. So good for them. Again, where this goes, that's probably the ultimate legacy of today in the future directions. This is probably the first time. This is like similar to a recruiting class. Chris, you have a really good year. It's not the next season, but the season after that really counts in recruiting. Rem Baker's first year, first spring game was last year. This is probably his first time where he's really hit the ground running. And if we're forgetting this, that almost Heaven Village. I had people text me and sending me photos from there. They had a great time. Food trucks, music, things like that. That's a pregame thing that I don't know if that'll be an every Saturday thing, but you think about what they've done over there. They've gotten rid of the pit. They've gotten rid of certain tented areas. You can't do this. You can't do this anymore. They probably shouldn't have the pit over there. Although pickup trucks full of ice and kegs, I'd be okay with that came back in a controlled environment, of course. I'm not sure that's up Ren Baker's sleeve there, but you can see they're adding things here. And if it's an experiment that sticks or that they tweak, that's good too. So again, I don't want to rave and do the PR for them, but they did a lot of it themselves. And earned media, Chris, and marketing, there's nothing like earned
Mhm.
media. You spend nothing on it and you get a whole lot from it. And here we are gushing about this too. Uh, Maybe we can pour water on the parade and talk about the game. I don't even want to talk about the game. I was just impressed by what it was and how I've felt in the past, before and during, and even after spring games. And totally different. I'm a convert, Chris, paid and bought.
All right. You brought up two things I wanted to talk about there. I'll let you pick which one, the Almost Heaven Village or Pat McAfee. Where do you want to go first?
Let's go, Pat. I think it's a huge deal.
All right. So you were there. You got a different view than me. You're in the press box. You're watching it live. You're seeing all this stuff. Uh, Pat made one appearance on the ESPN Plus stream. Um, and here I'm pulling up my tweet from the time. In about the span of about 30 seconds, he jokingly accused Pat White's team of cheating, talked about having too many Morgantown waters last night and was feeling a little rough, dropped an S bomb that did not get bleeped in time. So it was fresh and out there for everybody. And then called for Pat White's number 5 to get retired and saying it should have been done. Um, he wasn't invited back on to talk anymore for any more interviews, but it was great. Like, I mean, he was himself. He was just like he is on his own show. Very outspoken and kind of just sharing his mind. And hey, calling for Pat White's number 5 to get retired. He's not alone in that. Certainly not alone in that. Having fun about the game, having a good time, talking about having fun with everybody else. Um, Hey, I mean, he's an employee over there at ESPN and everything else, so he can deal with the S bomb with his own bosses on that one. But it was good. I didn't know if you got to see that because that was on that stream that I was watching, but it was
Listen,
good.
man, you swing in a pinata, that candy's gonna fall out, man.
Yeah,
You know what you're getting into, and shame on you if you don't. That's what you acquire when you line up that guest too. And even his announcing video on Twitter, I believe he
yeah,
swore twice on that. And again, I'm not a prude when it comes to language, but like they were bleeped out in the video, which meant that the WVU accounts didn't want that. But authentic to the core, Pat McAfee, and a prediction for you, Chris, they will probably retire Pat White's number. That would be
yeah,
in some fashion. Remember, we've been over this. Those rules change quietly, but a couple of years ago, those rules changed, and that can happen now. They realized it was way too strict and restrictive, and a guy like Pat White should be commemorated in some fashion. That was the guy where they sat down and said, "We can't honor this guy at all." and they changed it, and there's no reason that they can't. Now, I shouldn't say there's no reason, but like the things that stood in the way before that were prohibitions are gone now. And if you're Pat White, do you want to do this not knowing what the program is, who the athletic director is? Do they just want you to draw a gate, to have a big game, to have a moment? I don't know. Maybe want to know the people and get along with them. And this is the step in that direction where a year from now, this season, I don't know, but he feels secure doing that. Then again, we'll see. Again, the legacy of what happened today is ultimately down the road. But if they end up doing something with number five, that's going to be pretty cool, I think, too. And that's the guy certainly earned it on the field and over time. I don't think his accomplishments are any less than what they were at the time. And again, it was kind of cool to hear some people like parents actually in the parking lot talking about. I showed my kid the highlights because the parents remember. Kids are like not born or like 2 years old at that point. And to see that stuff and be like, holy cow, and it resonates with the family, that's pretty good too. Big day for the kids, Chris.
Yep. Speaking of,
Also, you know what? After the game too, that half an hour on the field after the game where people get to run around and throw passes and take pictures. And again, I don't want to like keep praising WVU, but they earn this. Like the biggest battle that schools have right now is replenishing your generational fans, and it's been thin for a while. And if you got some kid who is really moved by being on the field and taking a picture with Garrett Green or Nico Markio or Traylon Ray or Traylon Davis, even for that matter, if it means a lot to him, that kid may want to go to a game in the future this year or next year or the year after. He may want to attend school here. Maybe he's a recruit that decides he's going to play here, and 13 years from now, there's a photo of him at a signing ceremony with him taking a picture of Traylon Ray. Just little things like that go a long way. You got to find a way to keep those turntiles spinning generationally, and they at least had their mind on that, which is good. Again, just all around a pretty nice day by them.
speaking of the kids and the almost heaven village. So the very first weekend that went up, I believe it was Andrew. I can't remember who it was at the time that was working with us. And they went out, I said, hey, they got this new thing over there. Well, go over there and get a video and some pictures of what it looks like.
Mhm.
One, that'd be good. That'd be good for us. We could put it on the site. Our members can check it out. It might even be good for WVU. It might be good for people and the fans too. It'll be informative. Hey, is this something worth going up there? Maybe with my kids and going to check it out, doing all this stuff. We posted that video and you can still find it on the site. I'll link it somewhere on the board. It was not impressive. Day one looked a little rough, looked a little sparse, just kind of looked like one blow up thing and like one food truck maybe and kind of not much. And some people made some jokes. They were not a big fan of it, kind of said it was underwhelming. And now, like you said, they've had some time. They've had some time. They've had some runway to kind of build it up, to adjust, to add to it. And today, I've heard some very positive things about it. Said it wasn't anything like it was the first time around, just to your point about how nice it was, and you heard some good things about it. So they're they're learning, they're adapting, they're adding to and improving, and that's always a good sign.
Yeah, I think you got to convince the vendors to do it, so that helps. And they got some vendors who are willing. That's fine. The crowd wasn't so big; it wasn't 60,000 that it made it impossible to move around in there too. So those are good signs. And also, I did not see that like picket fence village on the field in the end zone or right behind the end zone. So that might be on the cutting room floor. It was an idea, and this is my thing here. Fail trying, but try. And if you try something that doesn't work, you have enough of a version of it, or you said, "Hey, we're trying things here." So from the same minds that brought you the Plastic Fence Village and the Almost Heaven Village, Rem Baker, oh, by the ways, that they have a $200 million press box suite level renovation. I would say on the drawing board. They got to go out and raise the money and do a study and all that stuff, but that wasn't coincidental either. So that's something that you can go out and work on now too. And
Hold on. Yeah. Is it coincidental that you are praising WVU and everything they're doing at the same exact time that they're announcing a $200 million upgrade to the press box?
I'm not contributing if that's what you ask. Unless they can give me like a non-corner seat in the end zone too. It was
Okay.
inevitable. Like that's prime real estate. And if
Yeah.
this athletic director, unlike his predecessor, believes that there is a need and a want and a demand to do the suites and to sell them for a period of years, not just the first year when it's hot, but get someone to commit for 5 years, or a company to commit for every year. You can do that. And then I mean, just that we have great seats, sideline level, parallel to the sideline. We're gonna move, I'm pretty sure, because that's stuff that you could sell for a ton of money, and it's kind of silly that they let it sit there because they can bank so much cash on that. And listen, good for them. Might take a couple of years, it might not even happen. 200 million. Seems like a small number, but that's a lot of money still. And even if it's more, it's gonna be that much more difficult. But you see where this is going now. Like you got to take it seriously, and they're taking it seriously with small things like a spring game, but big things like facilities and upgrades, renovations too.
So is this the part of the podcast where we talk about the actual football game?
Do we have to?
Okay. Was there anything is there anything worth talking about? Like that we
Sure.
actually saw? Like again, like I'm not saying they did a poor job. They didn't, there's been years past where it's like, oh my God, what are they doing out there? This wasn't really that, but it's still a spring game. It's still, I think Neil Brown had a point again. This was on the stream. I don't know if he said it in post game yet. I know you were there, but he said, "Hey, I not wasn't too worried about some of those interceptions because they're just running the same handful of plays over and over and over and over and over again, and the defense knows what's coming, and they were kind of cheating a little bit. So he wasn't as worried about the interceptions as he might have normally been, which then just takes me to the point of what can I take from this spring game? What can you really understand about it? And I don't know. I felt okay about one of the other things I said I wanted to see in that Friday 3-minute video preview, and that was how well are the linebackers moving? You
Yep.
got guys coming back from serious injury. Are they moving laterally? Are they moving well? Do they still look athletic? And I think so. Again, it's just brief moments, but they looked okay. They looked fine. They looked good. Um, I honestly don't know what else to take from this. What did you take?
So the structure of the game, it might as well be the Washington Generals. It's just never going to win because you're not going to put anything out there worthwhile. Like you didn't see Jaden Brady do hardly anything today. Does that mean he stinks, or is he good? And they don't want to let anybody know. I don't know. And I'll say this, Chris. I've had analysts from well, four analysts from three different schools follow me on Twitter all of a sudden because it's that time of year. You got to figure out what's happening, right? And Brown said that they were running plays in the 2023 playbook. They were just because they didn't want to put their new stuff on the film. So yeah, you can go back and look what they did on film last year and figure out, okay, they ran this, they ran this. So like their last four games last year, they just ran those plays, which is cool. Except interceptions today, Chris. Trotter, Jennings, Garnes, new. So yeah, maybe they were sitting on the same plays, but they were probably not running all the 2023 plays in practice if they're installing new stuff. I'm not sure how much installation happens in the spring anyway. But if new guys are picking off old plays, that's encouraging, right? And every one of those guys, that's somebody I wanted to see. Obviously, the linebacker is super intriguing because it's depth, it's good talent, it's old players, young players, big players, fast players, a lot to like there. But they've also put a lot into renovating, refurbishing, whatever you want to call it, rebuilding the secondary. And to see a guy like Zay Jennings, make a TFL play on a run, step in front of a pass on a 2-point play, Aiden Garnes, get think he got beat on one play on a touchdown. I'm trying to remember here. I don't want to besmirch the guy because I think he otherwise play well. That's a guy who can really run and stick with receivers too. They like him a lot as a guy who can do a couple of different things. I'm not sure he'll be a starting corner. He's going to play a lot because he might be your nickel. He might be the extra defensive back and pass packages, which you can see a lot in Big 12 play or just college football in general now. So those might be hits right away, those three guys. I think that you could look into the future based on today and say, if the goal of the spring, this is what Neil Brown stated, is to get ready for the fall or even this next phase of the summer, they probably did that. And they have a lot of their best players, most of their best players healthy and in situations that set them up to continue to grow and succeed and lead the way. But they also have some younger players or new players who are in position to push or to succeed and lead the way. That's really healthy right now.
Do you need me to clear the floor and let you ISO on RJ Kokan? What is it, third,
Koshan,
fourth? Koshan, excuse me.
Koshan, you not on the
Sorry.
newsletter? Koshan boots a 54-yarder.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't know how much you guys work on geometry and things like that. It was good from 73 based on my calculations. So that was good. Happy to see that. Some good punts. I'm not sure what happened to the special teams drill. It was hard to watch. I should say hard to watch. It was hard to figure out what they were doing. I couldn't tell who won or lost some of them, except one time Trotter buried Lathan in the middle of a play. Like the it was in the middle of the rep. Like you're supposed to go from one cone to the other, from like outside one hash to the outside the other hash. So it's like a pretty decent run. And it was over halfway through. He didn't mess around with that one. So that was cool. And something else that they got out of the game, Chris, and this was extremely appropriate to me. It ends on a Hail Mary. Like they were forced to practice a Hail Mary. Oh, we don't practice that very much. You don't get a chance to practice that. We practice it twice a week. I don't know what happened. I'm not sure. Like, I really wish they would have called a timeout and put their good guys in ones versus
Mhm.
one to see what happens. As it is, Keene throws the interception to Aiden Tagaloa Nelson. Maybe you want to see Tagaloa Nelson knock it down instead of catching it, but that guy's been trying to get his hands on a basketball or a football for a while now. So good for him for picking it off and showing them how to defend a Hail Mary too. Again, just good stuff all around, Chris.
Yeah, I'm checking out the stat book here. I was trying to see if there was anything else that stood out to me because again, the Clay Ash, I want to say that I was driving that bandwagon. So I'm glad to see him get the spring game bump. Don't know if it's going to last, but he was one that we saw at camp last summer. Very athletic. I was shocked that he wasn't an offer type guy, but here he is
Yeah.
involved in the mix doing something. I don't know if he's I don't know how much he's going to be involved in the fall, but still something. Um, Traylon Ray kind of got going there a little bit later in the scrimmage for receiver. Um, I don't know. Like it's hard. It's hard. It's always hard. It's hard every year to be like, yeah, this really impressed me. That really impressed me. Because most of the things that impressed me about today were off the field, just as we've already discussed with everything going on. So
What was cool about Ray was he was in there on the final drive with Jackson Christ. It wasn't like he was throwing to you and me and people like that. Like he's out there with the I don't know, is he going to be fourth string quarterback? Maybe he's third string now. I don't know. Maybe it's him, Wilkins, and Keene for the third spot in the fall. We'll see. But he's out there with his backup quarterback, and if you watch him, he's working. Like he's not just running his route and ending it. He's trying to get like up in front of the second level defender so the quarterback can see him and he can make himself available. He was really trying to help out Jackson Chris there on the final drive of the game where I mean guys are out of their shoulder pads, their helmets are off, they're having water. They threw the Gatorade on Pat McAfee. This game was over, right? And he's out there working. Number 7 to the very end was out there just trying to make sure his third or fourth quarterback got reps. That to me kind of stands out. And I guarantee you that if and when they do break this film down, I can't guarantee you for when they will, but should. That'll be something they prove to people that they show to people to prove that like, hey, you watch this guy because he knows what he's doing and he's trying really hard. And that stood out to me. I'd also say too that their lines I think are going to be a little bit better than we thought. Like, don't forget they have a starting five in the offensive line. Like Remach is going to start at left guard. Bryce Biggs didn't get to practice at all this spring. Unfortunately, he misses out a good opportunity to get a ton of reps at left guard, but they liked him a lot already. So get those two guys back. And you know more about Sullivan Weedman and Mo Hamilton right now. You know more about, like, you don't have to rep Wyatt Milam a ton in the spring. You'd be kind of silly to do that. But he gets requisite work in, and they give a lot of action to Nick Malone and Johnny Williams and people like that. So they're going to go on in the field the first day with 5. Chris, how many more do you think they have? Like you and I would say have because they always talk about, oh, we should get to 8 or 9, and that's great. But like, I don't think that's an unreasonable thing this year. You get Biggs back, you have more with Williams. Weedman looks like he knows what he's doing. Landon Livingston might be your second center. I mean, that's 9 right there. I'm not sure how much they trust Livingston in the game, but they might not have an option either. They really could go to 7, and again, have your swing guard, swing tackle, backup center. 8, 9, I think that's a good number. And then defensively, yeah, they're going to miss Corey McIntyre, and they might add to that too. But the talent they have concentrated in the players who are healthy and available. Maybe they're not numerically deep enough, but they have some good players in the defensive line too. They could roll in waves again.
yeah, the numbers thing on defense concerns me. I thought the guys that were out there looked fine, looked good. You know, again, as much as you can take from this, but they were, they're going up against a good offensive line.
Yeah.
So like they're not going up against, a weaker part of the team. And they looked like they held their own in the trenches there. So that was encouraging. Again, numbers like you said, that might be more of a concern. West Virginia's targeting transfers already, couple offers out, already had a visitor there. So that's something to keep an eye on. And speaking of, they also had a cornerback transfer visiting this weekend. Um, Neil Brown said, you know, if some of those guys that, especially in backup roles, weren't really filling in where they were hoping, or weren't as game ready as they were hoping, they would fill in on the back end and the transfer portal. And they got one on campus right now for a visit. Got out a couple new offers on that as well. So I think the transfer portal thing's just going to kick in here pretty quickly the next couple days.
You reported on Saturday morning transfer receiver contacted, um, quizzically says they're trying to get someone to play the X. Maybe that's depth, but like they're talking specifically, like, here's your role. We need someone who can play. Maybe you tell it to every transfer, but I think if you ask the general public, rank the positions in order of need in the transfer portal, I'm not sure receiver would be out of near the top. I'm not sure that that's the right opinion though either, especially with Horton leaving and just again not good talent but kind of thin. And like they had this whole thing from a couple years ago where you don't want to have three deep at every position because you got to throw in the ball and they'll transfer. You'd probably like to have more numbers than they have now. Is it simply getting one more body in there? Is it replacing um, some like maybe replacing somebody who's going to leave soon, Chris? I don't know. What do you think is it logical? Is it proactive, reactive? What do you make of this?
On that one, I think that's kind of being proactive, getting out ahead of it a little bit. Touching base, because again, that's just an offer. I'm doing air quotes for those that are listening and not watching. We'll see how legit it is. We'll see if he's going to come up for a visit. Transfers, things get serious once you start visiting. They don't have time to mess around. Like they don't
Mm.
have a full, 15 months, 18 months like high school recruits do to take all these visits, think about it, take some more visits, all this stuff, repeat visits. It's I got to take my visits. I got to be serious. Go, go, go. Um, so we'll see on that. But like you said, Horton's out. So it's almost like a one for one if you're going to start targeting a couple wide receivers of trying to find some more depth there. Um, Defensive line, obviously, Corey McIntyre gets hurt almost immediately. New offer out to Brandon Lane, who came in and visited last weekend. We haven't seen anything about anybody leaving yet in the secondary, but Neil Brown was very open about, hey, if some of these backup guys are not ready, game ready, we'll go out and get somebody. Boom, new offers go out in the secondary. Got a visitor this weekend. So I think more is going to come. I think more guys are going to leave, obviously. I mentioned it on the board. I believe the number I said it was 88, then minus Sean Boyle, minus EJ Horton, it's down to 86. The limit is 85. I think West Virginia will be down to 81 or 82 by Tuesday, probably. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. There's going to be some guys who are probably third on the depth chart, second on the depth chart, and they're in their third or fourth year, and they're going to go look for something else. And that's what the portal was originally meant for. So that's not too shocking. That's nothing to be concerned about. And I think West Virginia is going to go one for one and get right back up to 85 again.
I was struck by something that Brown said a couple of days ago, a couple weeks ago. I can't remember too, but likes his receivers when you line up Ray, Clement, Gallagher, Bray, Fox. Fox had another amazing catch today too, but likes those guys. You can move them around in different parts. And you can have guys who are 6'1", 6'2", 6'3", all over the field. They don't really have that long guy, that tall guy. And the guy that they have offered that you wrote about is, I believe, 6'3", Chris. Um, I wonder if they're targeting that body. They frankly need receivers. They just do. They don't have a lot right now. So would a big guy do it? Would more than one guy do it? I'd be pretty interested to see that. Like a lot of questions to ask. They'll answer them over time, but I think that's a good one there too. Like we think they have good receivers, and certainly they do. They have enough. I don't know. And do they have the depth in case one gets injured or pulls a hamstring or targets on a reverse block or something like that? I don't know. We'll see. Also, receivers could probably pass the ball a little bit better too. Picky? See, I can say
Yeah,
something negative.
you're getting picky. You were too positive for too long.
Yeah.
It had to start. Had to start, Mike.
Mhm.
Um, Also a big weekend high school recruiting.
Yeah.
They're not messing around. Transfer guys were in. They had a large majority, if not all, I'm trying to think off the top of my head here, of 2024 commits coming into town, or signees, not commits, signees, that were there to watch the game. Had a bunch of top 2025 targets, 2026 targets, even a couple 2027 guys. And they ranged from, guys that are at the top of the board all the way down, not down, like, don't take this negatively, but preferred walk-ons up to top of the target board. So they had a large chunk of players there. Got a commitment from two different players, a 2025 tight end, 2026 linebacker. It's a good way to get things started for 2026. I really like Davion Teller, the player who committed. Jackson Aquarte was the tight end in 2025 and seemed like it's top target at that position. Offered him, set up the official visit. He's got offers, been to a lot of schools, was most recently at Michigan State, and but like I said in my preview this morning, when a guy has a bunch of offers, only has one official visit set up, and is visiting the school that he only has an official visit set up 5 weeks before he's going to come for his official visit, use your brain,
That's
see
a
what's
hint.
going to happen.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much to figure that out.
think that might about wrap it up here, Chris. They're not paying us for advertising, but again, it's hard not to be impressed by what they did. I mean, everything can always be better, but could it have gotten so much better in such a short amount of time? 1 year, we'll see. But when you think about all they accomplished last year, I think this is kind of a commemoration of that. So good for them. Good for the fans. Had good weather, even though it was kind of rainy early on. A bunch of people got over the baseball game. They had a good crowd for that. Mountaineers win that one, so they're back on a winning streak. I don't know, Chris. No great clouds. Sun's out.
Where's your panic meter?
I don't even know where
One
it
to
is.
10.
I don't even know where it is. I
It's
have to go
nine.
find it. I mean, I probably have to go buy batteries for it and everything too. Life is good. And like Neil Brown swimming, right? No problem. DeVries had a small army of players on campus too, I believe, too, right? And by the way, he's got
Didn't.
6 players now. So some good things are happening there too. Toby Okani commits. They're gonna probably get a point guard and a center before too long, you would hope. You're starting to like squint a little bit and see the shape, the outline of a team, a coaching staff, a roster, a direction. Life's good, right?
Yep. Sounds good.
By
Either
the way, were you aware that Okani was a guard?
sure. He can call himself whatever he wants to call him.
I think that's the thing. He's just a basketball player. Like people are like, oh, they
Yeah.
got that forward from Chicago, from Illinois. I'm like, Illinois, like Hansberry? Like, no. The guy from UIC. I'm like, oh, the guy's a guard. Like, no, he's 6'8", 230. I was like, I know, but he's a guard. And because he played guard, he was listed as a guard everywhere. I think people forget that. But man, you put him at the 2 or the 3, put him and Harris together. That's some pretty good defense in the perimeter, which is kind of going toward the way they want to play. So just
Yep.
a Frazier impact right away.
It's nice. We've been talking about that length. Keep it going. Keep it going.
Interchangeable parts.
Yep.
Speaking of podcasts on a Sunday morning, we'll be back. I don't know, sometime early this week. Maybe we have to wait till Tuesday until we have more questions to ask or topics to discuss. Maybe we'll be back Monday. Just have to stay tuned because as we learned this week, Chris, with short notice, you can have great surprises. So why don't we live up to that standard by ourselves? Until then, I am Mike Casazzo.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
We will talk to you then.